Hi, welcome to the Talk Spot. This is Marcus, and today I'm joined by Andrew Bernstein again. Andy, thank you for coming on.
Marcus, always a pleasure, my friend.
Of course. So
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Yeah, I think the last time we spoke was, back in September. So it's been a little bit, but I wanted to ask you, now that we're virtually at the halfway mark in terms of games played in the NBA. I guess I want to ask you a little bit of, how have you felt the season's gone so far? Like, does this season feel any different from your perspective being in these arenas? This idea that, especially before the season started, there was this concept of, the race is wide open. All these NBA pundits were saying, hey, there's 7 teams that can maybe make the finals, or 8 or whatever it was. Do you, I guess, what would be your take halfway through this season? Does it feel that way? Is there excitement in every arena? How are things different this year compared to previous years?
Well, this year started off. I went to China with the Lakers, and that was a little bit of a interesting situation, as you remember. And came back from that, and then was very heavily involved in preseason with both teams, Lakers and Clippers. Both teams have new looks and star players, and so there was a lot going on in preseason and right at the beginning of the season. And then both teams were home quite a bit at the beginning, which was good. I haven't really traveled very much. I don't think I traveled really at all in December, and this only trip coming up in January is this one to Paris, and it's not even with either of my teams. But the excitement level in LA has been off the chart. I mean, opening night was like a playoff game atmosphere with the Lakers and Clippers, and then Christmas Day, same thing. Everybody's sort of salivating over the prospect that these two teams could play each other in the playoffs at some point. As you know, in the history of both franchises, they've never played each other in the playoffs, which is really weird if you think about it. But it's never happened, so this could be the year. It could be really fun.
So you mentioned about the whole China trip. I mean, was that, like, have you ever, I mean, obviously you've been in the industry far longer than I've even been alive, but from your perspective, has there ever been an international situation like this? And you don't have to go into any kind of confidential type information, but just from your own feeling, was this the biggest international kind of incident related to the NBA you've ever seen?
Well, it was all kind of an unknown scenario. I mean, we went over there. Once we landed, the controversy had sort of started at that point, and then we didn't know what we were going to do there. I mean, government canceled a couple of things, and one day led to the next, and we were kind of in a holding pattern, which is a little unsettling, but it is, it was definitely different. Usually you go to an NBA international event and things are very well scheduled, to the minute. We all know where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do, and the teams know. And so it wasn't the case in this particular scenario, but we ended up playing the 2 games. It was super fun to be in both of those cities and see the Nets and Lakers compete, and then we got back. So, it was certainly different. I wouldn't really call it anything other than sort of an unknown experience of something that we hadn't experienced before.
For yourself, how many times have you gone to China with the NBA?
It's interesting. I think I counted 13 times, and that includes NBA games in China, USA basketball exhibitions and games in China. I went to China with Shaq back in the day, I think twice. I know I definitely went once. So, 13 times, that's a lot. That's a lot of times in China. A lot of flying across the Pacific.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I've been to Korea twice, and I think the flight even from, Los Angeles to China's even further. But, it's a long flight. I guess for basketball in China, I mean, when you went with Shaq, was that pre-Lakers or was that once he was a Laker?
Good question. I believe it was pre-Lakers. I think he was still in Orlando, and he was one of Reebok's main celebrity sports endorsers. They would have these trips that we would either go to Europe or Asia. One time we went to Asia, and he did what was called the Shaq Rap and Jam Tour, which was pretty crazy. You could probably find it on YouTube because there's some great video of that, where he would travel with rappers who were also basketball players, right? And we'd get to a venue like an arena or someplace like that, and the first half of the evening would be a basketball game with Shaq and his kind of all-star team of guys playing against local teams. Then there'd be an intermission, and they would reset, and it would become like a disco. It would become a music venue, and he and the guys would rap for the second half. A concert. So it was a really unique concept. I don't think anyone's ever done that again. The people in the countries we went to went crazy because they're seeing Shaq the basketball player and Shaq the rapper. It was pretty cool. I really had fun on that tour.
Since Shaq, have you seen a superstar in the NBA with that kind of combination, I guess, of charisma, goofiness, and also just pure talent?
No, I mean, Shaq is definitely one of a kind. There have been so many guys who came with him and after him and will come, in the next generation. But like you said, I don't think there's going to be anybody who has that same combination because he was ruthless on the basketball court, a beast that couldn't be controlled or contained. I mean, he was so dominant. He likes to call himself the most dominant ever, and I think he was. Honestly, I never saw Wilt play, so it'd be hard for me to compare. But Shaq at his size and the mobility he had and his competitiveness on the court, and then he's just a lovable, fun guy to be around and incredibly talented musically. People don't give him enough credit, I think. What he brought to the table there, and he's a great philanthropist. He's a great businessman. And now, of course, he's made his mark doing TV commentary with TNT and stuff. So he's the full package. I don't think we'll ever see anybody quite like Shaq come along.
Well, I think the funny thing about Shaq now is for younger people that are, let's say, I don't know, under 22, and if they're not big NBA fans, I feel like a lot of them know Shaq from the commercials. I feel like Shaq's in more commercials than any person I could think of. I mean, it's remarkable.
I think you're right. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think he's got 13 national commercials going on right now, like 13 different brands that he's actively hawking on TV, which is like I don't think you can think of any celebrity who has as many as that, much less an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. Yeah. He's got a great agent too, by the way. So that helps.
I mean, it must have been awesome for you when you knew him when he was in his prime playing. And I mean, that's something that I think would be so enviable about your position is that you've seen so many just incredible athletes over the years, so many of these just transcendent players, even just beyond Lakers, but even just if you just want to say inside the Staples Center, I mean, even especially the Forum too. I mean, you've seen Magic, Kareem, Kobe, Shaq, Gasol, LeBron, Davis. I mean, this is it's remarkable.
Yeah. Kawhi, Paul George, you can't leave out my Clippers. The Clippers are important too. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, I've been very, very, very fortunate. A series of events in my life happened and brought me to L.A. in the late 70s. And my career started there, and that's where it took hold. And that's where it's been cemented, and I never lose sight of the fact that, things could have gone a different way too, and could have ended up in another city. Who knows what would have happened with that? But I'm grateful that things happened the way they did and continue to escalate even higher. I mean, who knew we'd have, the last time I looked at the All-Star balloting for this year, I believe the two Lakers superstars and the two Clippers superstars were 1 through 4 on the voting list in the West, which I think, or at least 4 out of the 5, which is pretty unbelievable if you think about it.
Yeah, no, I mean it really is truly the Staples Center. In a lot of ways, does seem like the center of the basketball universe right now. Which
I agree. I don't think you could argue that at all. That's for sure.
No. I guess one more thing I wanted to ask about China was the NBA before Yao Ming, was it already gaining traction there? Did Yao Ming, was he the person, would you say, that just took basketball in China one step further, or did he take it 10 steps forward, where he took it from something that was kind of followed in China, just from your own perspective? Did he take it from something that was really small and just blew it up, or was it already kind of trending upwards?
Mm-hmm. Well, to my knowledge, there was a tour back in, I don't even know, the 70s, I guess. And I think it was the Washington Bullets. I might be mistaken, but that's what I think I've heard. Went over there to China to sort of introduce basketball to China. People were playing basketball in China at that time, but it wasn't nearly a widespread sport politically, China and the U.S. was starting to kind of thaw their relations. After Nixon went to China and all that in the early '70s. And then I'm not really sure what happened. I think there might have been another player who came over before Yao, or one or two, who either made an NBA team or tried to or something. But basketball was starting to pick up in China, and I think one thing led to the next, and all of a sudden, boom, here comes Yao Ming, and he just broke it all open. I mean, as you say, you talk about like a meteorite that just landed from China. It's just unbelievable. And he was a great ambassador of the sport for his country. This is one of the truly most wonderful human beings I've ever met in life and in sports particularly. And he was really good. He actually was a great basketball player. And unfortunately, his career was cut short, because his feet kind of let him down, unfortunately. But, definitely first ballot Hall of Famer, as we all know, and put China on the map for basketball forever. Because now you go over there, and there's basketball courts everywhere. And, Yao is the head of the Chinese Basketball Association. He owned the Shanghai Sharks that he used to play for them. I think he had to give up his ownership when he became the president of the CBA, but he's very, very visible, very active. He and the NBA have formed a tremendous partnership to expand basketball, youth basketball, especially in China. And the future is, I don't even know what the future is going to hold, because it's been a tremendous explosion so far, and the vision that both Yao and Adam Silver have, I think, are aligned with taking it even further.
So would you say, Yao Ming, is he basically the equivalent of Adam Silver in China? Like, is that the same type of position he has?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure how it's structured. Adam Silver is the commissioner and essentially reports to the owners of the NBA, but, runs the league, of course, and all the tentacles of the league all over the world. I'm not sure how it works in China in that sense, but yeah, Yao is the top of the pyramid, so he's the head guy, and everything has to go through him. So I guess it's pretty similar, yeah.
So over, I guess, the last, year, 6 months, it seems like there's been a lot of talk about changing some things in the NBA, including one thing being the playoff reseeding in a mid-season tournament. What are your thoughts about that? Like, do you think, especially let's say the mid-season tournament, is that something just, you don't have to say names or anything, but just kind of, being in the world of the NBA, like, do people seem receptive to that idea, or is it kind of people really are unsure about it so far?
Marcus, I don't think there's enough real information about it to really make a judgment. The mid-season tournament idea was put out there, but I don't think anybody knows what that really means. How it's going to be structured, how it works. Are they going to, have a sort of break in the season? I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I think any change usually is good in life and in sports and in business. And, I think that these are really smart people at the NBA who have their pulse on what's going on in the league and what the fans want, and maybe it needs a little bit of a little jolt during the season to kind of get people a little bit more into the regular season, and make the playoffs not be the total focal point, but it's a very long regular season, 82 games over 6 months. So I think it's important to keep the public as interested as possible. I think that's part of it.
Well, because this in the NBA, I mean, again, this is just, what's being said in the media. There's kind of the perception that the NBA's ratings are down. And I mean, by no means, I'm no TV expert. That's not my field of focus at all. So I don't really read over the ratings. But I have read some articles talking about how the ratings are down. And I think the Lakers had the most highly rated non-holiday game in a regular season in 2 years when they played. I think it was the Bucks. It was something like that, or they whatever game it was.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah, is that a real concern? I mean, again, without you don't have to name any names or anything, but like, is that a real concern of the ratings? Is that like, are they really down, or is it more they're converting over to, like for example, obviously in the greater LA area, there's Spectrum that offers basically every Laker game. Like, are there really less people watching basketball now than they were in the '90s, or is it just they're watching it on different sources out? So instead of watching it on ESPN or TNT, they're watching, they're watching on their local providers, or they're watching it on ESPN Plus. Like, is it just changing, or there is a ratings crisis?
You're really talking to the wrong guy about that. I'm so disconnected from that whole side of the business. I know that our side, the photo side, is growing by leaps and bounds every year. So if that's an indicator of fan interest, I find it hard to believe that we're in any kind of rating crisis. It ebbs and flows, obviously, during the course of a season. And even in your best of years, there's going to be, a little bit of a lull every once in a while. But honestly, Marcus, I can't answer that with any kind of accuracy whatsoever. I mean, I know personally that the arenas are pretty full, the ones I go to, and the fans are still into it. And like I said, the photo business is alive and well and doing great. So, that's really all I can judge it on.
Well, one thing that at least that's cool from a fan's perspective, like, just a person like me that I just consider myself a fan. I don't work in the industry by any means, but one thing that's so cool is, like you talked about your own work, your photography work, and like, it's awesome the fact that it's so readily available. And I see it like all the time. Like I follow your accounts on Twitter, and I mean, some of the photos you post, it's awesome. And I feel like before social media, obviously photos that you've taken have turned into like cards, like collectible cards. But I mean, the proliferation of stuff that you've created, or even people that put together like highlight reels, like on their own, like I see it on Twitter all the time. Like, like when, for example, the other night when Chris Paul and the Thunder, when they were playing the Rockets, when Chris Paul had that move where he dribbled between the two guys, like he kind of threw the ball and he collected it afterwards. Yeah. I mean, that highlight, it was like, wow, this is incredible. And I didn't have to wait till the next day to watch on ESPN. Like I watched it on Twitter, like, 10 minutes after it happened. But, So,
think about how that's grown over my career, almost 40 years, where, you were lucky if you saw a game highlight the next day, much less the day it happened. So it's pretty amazing that you could really almost see in real time stuff that's happening in other arenas, or even the arena you're in. LeBron has a dunk the other night, and I get notifications on my phone like everybody else. He had a dunk, and by the next time out, which was like 3 minutes later, the highlight was already out there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy how that happens. But it's great. It's great because you feel like you're totally connected to the game and the players you love.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, obviously these players, I mean, they're signing bigger contracts than ever. It seems like, at least from the outside world, it sounds like everyone, and even like you say yourself, everyone is making more money. So obviously if there is any kind of ratings issue, it must not be that severe because everyone seems to be making a lot of money. So that's a good thing. I mean, that's what fans should want, because if they're making money,
sure,
then that means that the product's going to be better. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about this Lakers season. So obviously, I mean, you've had such long ties to the Lakers, and knowing Phil Jackson, writing a book with Kobe. Like, one thing I want to ask is, I mean, does this Lakers team, does it feel like one of those championship teams? I mean, you've been around enough championship teams where you kind of know the feeling. I mean, does this team kind of have that feel to it?
Yeah, I think they have what it takes. I mean, there's some key factors that you have to think about. One is talent, obviously. Then there's depth. There's chemistry. There's a swagger, that they feel like they are the team to beat. They've had some times they sort of play down to the competition, so to speak, which is a little troublesome. I know coaching staff gets a little worried about that when they sort of blow big leads in the third quarter, and then they got to kind of, circle the wagons and send the starters back in and win the game, or cement the game. But Yeah, I mean, I see a deep run for them. I see a deep run for the Clippers too. I mean, the Clippers don't have that history, but you got to start your history at some point, and I think they have what it takes as well. That's why it's just such a blast for me, night in and night out, to go from one team playing to the next. Like this week, for example, Monday through Thursday, it's Lakers, Clippers, Lakers, Clippers, and they're playing the same two teams, which is interesting. They're playing Cleveland and Orlando. So, you get to see how both LA teams play against these same teams, and then, every night it's one or the other. So it's fun for me, for sure. I mean, I think everyone in Staples Center, be it a Laker game or a Clipper game, is thinking that their team is going to be the team, is going to be the one to beat. And I think the league is kind of wide open, right? You don't have a dominant Warriors team or a Cavs team because, the guy from the Cavs is now on the Lakers. So we'll have to see how that all goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're totally right. And I kind of, one thing I like between the two teams, too, between the Clippers and Lakers is, some of these just old guys that are just doing great. You look at Lou Williams and it's like, wow, he's still out there. He's doing great. I mean, they have Doc Rivers, who feels like he's been a coach for 45 years. He's still out there. Jerry West is involved there. Then you look at the Lakers side and you're like, wow, like Dwight Howard. I texted my friend last night after watching the Cavs and Lakers plays. I'm like, dude, is Dwight Howard a top 30 player right now? Like, he looks incredible. I mean,
unbelievable.
I mean, it's when he signed. Yeah. I mean, I remember when he signed with the Lakers this last summer. Like, I remember texting just friends that are just fans, and they're like, oh, this is such a terrible idea, and we should have gone for Joakim Noah and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, let's have a little bit of hope in Dwight. And I don't know, even if Dwight knew that he was going to be this good, I don't know. I mean, I've never spoken to him. I don't know. But I mean, this is like, I couldn't have imagined a better scenario or outcome for Dwight than this season. I mean, this is like, how much better could you want than this?
No, I mean, he surpassed every possible projection or expectation. I am so happy for him. Look, Legends of Sport, my new platform, is really all about second chances or bringing back that iconic sort of, I don't know, swagger, or guys rebuilding something that maybe kind of went down a little bit over the years for whatever reason. And I think Dwight is the perfect testament to that he had it in him to turn it around, and professionally prove that he's who he is. I don't think he wanted to go out with that negativity, at the end of his career. And he's not only has he shown it, but the results have been incredible. I mean, having him and JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis, I mean, that's like 21 plus feet of greatness out there. It's pretty unbelievable.
No, it really is. Yeah. And I mean, I think I totally agree with you. This whole redemption for Dwight. I mean, I remember I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast. This was probably a year and a half ago, and he was talking about Dwight Howard, and he was saying something like along the lines of, like, Dwight is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but it's begrudgedly. It's kind of like, yeah, he's good for a time, but kind of, just a little bit of he's good enough. But I mean, you're right. I mean, ending his career, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm like I said, I've never interacted with him, and I'm no doctor, but he looks like he could play for at least a couple more seasons, and I don't know, winning a title, and after all those multiple NBA, all NBA teams and All-Star appearances, I mean, he's for sure a Hall of Famer, right?
I would, if I had a vote, after this season, whether he wins a championship or not, his body of work, I think, speaks for itself. I really do. And I think a lot of us, maybe not a lot of us who are in the game, but, fans, people in media, forget how incredibly dominant this guy was early in his career. I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with. And, I'm just, again, super happy that he's had this resurgence and this turnaround, and hopefully it'll lead to a ring for him at some point, because I think he's worked hard enough to get it. And he's proven he's a great teammate. That was always sort of the knock on him as well. And, I don't think there's a guy on that team who isn't thrilled to have Dwight as their teammate. He's a cheerleader when he's on the bench. He's always the first guy out there to pick a guy up if he gets knocked down. He's always out there with the high five during a timeout. I mean, the guy is just so invested and involved, and it's, everyone always likes to point to how much money these guys make, how much money they make. You know what? This is not about the money to Dwight, because as we know, he's kind of getting like a minimal amount of money to play this year, but this is all about the joy of the game. It's a great lesson to young people about how guys even at this level can still enjoy and love the game as much as they did maybe when they were kids. And that's just obvious.
And I think another thing that's so cool about his redemption tour too is that it's in LA with the Lakers. I mean, you have a fan base that just absolutely hated him even up to a year ago. Now I think I think him and Caruso are like two of the biggest fan favorites on the team. I mean,
I know, but why are people, this is an easy answer, but I'm asking anyway. Why are people so on the Caruso and Dwight bandwagon? It's because they work their butts off, and they play hard, and they enjoy playing. It's all the ingredients of what makes a great player. Yes, you have to have talent. Of course, you're not going to have talent. You're not going to be in the NBA without talent. But you also have to bring something to the table as a teammate, and the joy of the game, and all the intangibles that sometimes you don't see in some of these NBA players out there. And that's why these guys are so loved. Caruso, worked his way up from absolute oblivion and, got himself into the G League and excelled in the G League and caught the eye of Rob Pelinka and those guys who run basketball operations. And look where he is now. The guy, what is he, like 8th on the list of all-star voting for guards?
I think now he's moved up to 6th.
Think about it.
Yeah,
that's crazy, and God bless him. I mean, he's worked hard. It's not a fluke, and it's not like it's some kind of I don't know, novelty or something. People really respect this guy, and respect his work ethic.
And he's fun to watch. And I mean, that's one thing that I personally like so much about this Lakers team is that there were so many like elements or ingredients where you're like, oh, the season's going to go terribly. It starts off with the China thing. You're like, oh man. Then, DeMarcus Cousins gets injured. Like, oh, we're signing Dwight Howard. And then, Rob Pelinka and the whole Magic Johnson thing. And now here we are, 8 months or 9 months since Magic Johnson left. And it's like, Rob Pelinka got extended. I think Frank Vogel looks like he could be coach of the year. And there was all that whole coaching controversy and, people. I remember last year, they were, LeBron's only moved out here for entertainment and business purposes. Well, I don't know. I don't know where he could have had a better team than this team right now. And I love it. I mean, I think that all these narratives they've all been kind of nipped in the bud. I think it's great to watch. Like you said, with Caruso, here's a guy that, I mean, there's so many players that I'm sure have worked so hard like him that just never even get a chance. And now here this guy is that, I mean, he might get serious playing minutes in the Western Conference Finals or even the Finals. I wouldn't be shocked if Caruso played minutes in the Finals. But
no, he's right there on Frank Vogel's first few guys off the bench. So absolutely, speaking to your the first part of what you just said, Marcus, is like, we're in LA, so there has to be a storyline. There's got to be intrigue. There's got to be some controversy. I mean, when can you ever remember, even with Showtime, when there wasn't something going on, some storyline? Because we're in LA. I mean, there's got to be something happening. So,
that's true.
I take that with sort of a grain of salt. It gives the pundits and the writers and TV people something to talk about and write about. But how much of it is actually real? How much of the Kobe and Shaq controversy and was actually real? Very, very little of it, honestly, and I could tell you that firsthand. But there had to be a storyline somehow. So everything that you said happened, and somehow the Lakers always rise above the sort of fog of whatever you want to call it. I don't even want to call it controversy. I just want to call it sort of, I don't know, chatter. And what proves out in the end is basketball, is really the game and winning And if they're not winning, they address the not winning, which they did, obviously. And now they're winning because they have the personnel to do it. And I think Frank Vogel, honestly, I didn't know Frank before this season. I only had met him once on a trip to China when he coached Indiana. I think he's absolute perfect fit as coach for this team, just as Doc is. Doc is the perfect fit for this Clippers team because of the personnel they have and what Doc brings to the table and the type of teams he's coached in the past and the kind of player he was. I started my career photographing Doc as a player, so fast forward, how long has he been a coach? Forever, right? So
yeah, it feels like forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said that joke earlier, I mean, it's like it feels like he's been coaching for the entire time you've been working in the NBA. Like I hear this team, I'm like, oh, that's right. He was coaching the Magic in the early thousands. It's like what?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Andy. Well, definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much for coming on. Are you going to be at the Bucks and Lakers game in March?
Oh yeah, not missing that one, buddy. Of course, that's circled on the calendar in red.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I plan to go to the game for my birthday.
Oh, great. Well, please reach out. Text me. Let me know where you are.
Okay.
Ahead of time or when you're in the building, and I will do all I can to come and see you.
All right. Well, sounds perfect. And real quick, do you want to do a shout out?
I would love to. I want to obviously point people in the direction of my Instagram, which is ADB Photo Inc. Instagram and Twitter. So you'll see pictures from games that are going on currently, and then some more historical pictures. And then my other platform is Legends of Sport. So you'll find photos from throughout my career on Legends of Sport. You'll find snips from my Legends of Sport podcast on there. And we have an interactive blog called at legendsofsport.blog. So please log on to that every day and let us know your thoughts on the stuff that we're blogging about. Usually it's this day in sports history, but we talk about all kinds of things and take suggestions, and we would love to make it as interactive as possible. And then the podcast is about to be relaunched. More on that probably the next time you and I talk. But we're putting our guest list together for season 3. We're moving platforms, and pretty soon I'll have an announcement about that. So stay tuned, my friend.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Marcus. Take care, pal.
All right, you too.